could you give us a bit of backdrop into why, first of all, the government backed down? And then afterwards, maybe give us a brief explanation as to why this is actually not great news for us all.
So first up, appreciate both of you for actually calling me to come on. You wouldn't believe it doesn't happen very often where I get someone picks up the phone and says, do you want to come on and tell us a little bit about this? So props to you
Why
two
not,
for doing
though?
that.
Because you're the one who's out of my circle, you're the one that I know who understands the majority of things happening in India, considering that we don't
your
get much coverage about it.
Expand your circles, boys. Expand your circles.
Is it worth it?
We need to leave Pangraman.
Straight up, I think I'm not the most knowledgeable person on this whose first language is English, but I'm one of maybe a handful of people who has a depth of knowledge on many different topics that would be necessary for someone to appreciate and understand if they were going to talk on this topic. So that's where I definitely fit that category, but there's not many of us is the other thing. And I think then beyond that, what we found throughout the whole of the last year that was quite interesting is a lot of people, I don't actually go, I've only ever been on one of them, but there's Twitter spaces now. People started doing that. Yeah. And then there was podcast after podcast after podcast. Most of them seem to center around people who were part of activist groups or organizations that were gathering funds to send out. And so they're usually the people who I think who become go-to. Now, that's not me just taking an aside. It's actually an important part of this whole process. And we'll come on to that in later questions, but I'll start with the first question you said. So what the government has backed down to a certain extent by repealing the 3 laws, which is not what their plan was. There's clearly been a back down there. That wasn't their plan to back down and repeal all 3 laws, but they have done that. The reason why I think they did that is there's, more than it's multiple reasons why. But primarily it's twofold. One is that Narendra Modi saw that the amount of protest and opposition he was coming up against meant that he had to do something different in order to proceed. And the second reason is related to that first one. There's elections coming up. And the elections, and we're now 3 months away, 2 months away from the start of those elections. And as a result, he could not risk going this close into an election period and having this on his head and having it take up all of the column inches, all of the press coverage, because that's exactly what it would have done.
Would they still cover it though, considering that
yeah. No matter how much of the media you've got in your pocket or under your payroll, you can't remove yourself from that kind of motion. What also would have happened is during the elections, there would have been an exacerbation of that protest. It would have grown tenfold. There would have been the opposition parties would have helped to ignite that. They would have taken.
They would have used it.
They would have united.
Yeah. They would have shone a light on it more, saying, "Look what he's done.
Get him out."
Totally. It would have been theirs for the taking. The whole thing would have been up for grabs. And I think he couldn't take that risk. Now, what's most interesting, I think, in this whole area has been what we've seen is, I used the word Narendra Modi. I didn't say the Indian government. I didn't say the cabinet. It is Modi who's doing all of this. And he is now proven, in my opinion, as being a larger than life character. And that's not unique to Hindustan. You see that throughout the world now. All of the world leaders we've got of repute are now larger than life personalities and characters who dominate. We're in a weird state at the moment that I've heard people talk about it as being autocratic, almost being, Kim Jong-il of North Korea is one that you would pick up as being one of those who was an out-and-out dictator. But I would say more than autocratic, we're almost in dictatorial rule in most of the major developed nations of the world. And if you look at the way that
Russia, China,
Putin, Xi Jinping is in China, has made a huge move in the last week. Hell yeah. Now, even though it's Biden,
even though it's
Biden, the Biden, because of his age, and because of COVID, hasn't been able to project himself and put himself out there yet. but that was going to be a major personality dominated rule. And you're seeing that. I mean, you saw that with Trump, obviously, but even with Obama, Obama was larger than life. And that whole operation over 2 terms was about Obama. So we've kind of gone that way. But in India, what we've seen in the last year is that Modi runs shit.
Yeah.
Modi's the mafia boss. And everyone else is just part of the cartel.
Doesn't he have a history of this? Because he incited a lot of violence against Muslims when he was president of a state. I've forgotten the state name. But there was a bit of a genocide there, wasn't there?
Yeah, not a bit of a genocide.
No, not a bit of a genocide, but essentially there was a genocide and it wasn't really picked up that much. Like even when it came to his elections, it still didn't stop him from rising to power now.
Elected.
Hence why I used that little bit, because it didn't really mean much to a lot of the voters, did it? Which is a shame. It shouldn't be like that at all.
It's been stamped down a lot by current affairs and historians of the time, and now. But when he was chief minister there, and what they did in Ayodhya, the tearing down of what was called the Babri Mosque, and then the annihilation of whole groups of Muslims in that area, in that territory,
which state was it
on his watch. Gujarat.
Right.
So this was all on his watch when he was chief minister there. So this is a character who had that capacity before him. He's not the only one, though. If it wasn't him, it would be somebody else. This is the way the world has gone, not just India has gone. If you look at Pakistan, neighboring Pakistan, Imran Khan is a larger-than-life personality and character who's controlling that country. Now, the difference is with many of the countries who aren't these superpowers is that they still have a lot of checks and balances in place, and there's still a lot more nuance. And India, to a certain extent, still has a lot of other characters and a lot of other personalities in play. The point I'm trying to make there is that what has been shown by the repealing of the laws is Modi is really the one who's making the decisions himself sometimes. Yeah, he's making the call. When he decides, no, okay, let's pull it. He wouldn't have said it like that. That's why I'm not a prime minister, and he is. But he would have been churning that out for months about shall I do and when shall I do it. And this was the moment where he's like, I can't go any further. I've got to call it now.
You played chicken for so long, and then it came a point, like you said, where we have to control the narrative, which is squash this now before somebody else has used the narrative. And it was Gurpur, wasn't it? It was Guru Nanak Dev Ji's...
I was going to say, on the day he did it, do you think he did it symbolically on that day to coincide?
Why do you guys think, because this is interesting for me.
There's no writing that day.
Here's what's interesting for me to know from you guys. Why do you think he chose that day? I'm not putting you on the spot. Genuinely, what do you think?
Automatically, I thought it's because of that, to build up some leverage, saying, "Oh, isn't he nice? Look at what he did." Then in the media, they could publish it on what a great way to mark this year of Gurpurb for Sikhs. Look at how he's done this on this day. Like, it gives him a bigger positive spin on it compared to what it would have been. It gives him a chance to take away from the main story, and then he gets to be painted as like a nice guy.
Would that be what you think a lot of Sikhs in the West would be assuming is the reasoning?
No, I think a lot of Sikhs see through it. But the broader media...
No. He's not saying why it was done. How does it look? I was asking, how do most people perceive it to be? I think that would be the narrative. Exactly that.
That would be it, yeah?
Yeah, it would be the narrative, yeah.
I see what you're saying, Indy. Like Dr. Jazz just said, you've gone to the furthest bit, though. Like most people are seeing through that. But most people are perceiving that's the reason he chose that date. I don't think that's the reason he chose that date.
Okay.
So I think he chose that date because this is a real complex issue, the farmers one. And that's what I said when I came here last time. This is not a cut. This is not.
You can't pinpoint to one event. There's so much history behind it that leads you to this cause.
There's so much going on, and even with the farmers' protests, there was so much going on, and people have started to learn that because over the year, people started realizing, there's more than 24 farmers' unions. Why is that, right? And you started realizing they all had different affiliations. So I think, and I'm not alone in this, in the sense I haven't come up with this myself. I've heard it from other analysts and started thinking, I think that's what's going on. I think that Modi chose Guru Nanak's Gurpurb for the reason of sending out a message as to whom he was repealing this law for, and to whom he was sending a message to say, well, look, I'm here for you to now speak to me if this is what we have to do. I'm open to negotiations. And I think that was openly sent to the Sikh community. I think that's the way I see it. I don't see this as an olive branch. He's much more shrewd than that. It's not meant to be an olive branch, but it's meant to be, you the guys who've caused this problem. So here you go. You get it. I'll repeal the laws. But, you know, this isn't it. This isn't the end. Doesn't mean I'm going to reenact the laws, but, you know, at some way we are going to continue moving along down this line in this direction. This won't be the end of it. But here's the open door for the Sikhs of Punjab to now speak with me and tell me what it is you want. Because in the way that you have been a thorn in the side of every major power that takes control of Delhi for the last 70 years, I will not allow the direction and the channeling of this country's future, the way that I'm taking it, the blueprint that I've developed. I'm not going to allow that to be stopped by you troublesome people over there. And I can see you are going to continue to cause me these issues. So bring it on. Let's see what you want, and let's see if we can have that negotiation. I think that whole thing was orchestrated for that day.